Testing. All right, there we go. Hi there, my name is Maxwell William Ahmadi, University ID number 521400501 of the University of South Florida in Tampa. And today I'm here to present my third and final Tableau presentation for the GEB 4890 Strategic Management and Decision Making class taught by Richard Kelso during the spring of 2023 semester. And so today I have a Tableau presentation regarding our in-class capstone simulation that we completed within 6 different groups. And so to provide a little bit of context before diving into our presentation, we were asked throughout this past spring semester to forefront and begin a simulation in which we were making real-time business decisions for owning and operating a tech selling sensor business. So selling like radar or technology sensors within the general technology industry, both inside the United States and out. And so with that, we were asked to make a numerous amount of business decisions, including hiring and employee staffing decisions, human resources, competitive advantage, mission and vision statements, and ultimately financial planning, both on the investment side and on the business operational day-to-day side to project our business forward. And so today I'm here to talk a little bit about that and break down how each of our groups did. So starting with the bar chart in front of me, we are looking at both the return on sales and the return on equity for each of the sensor businesses throughout the year. And so the most notable that I see from understanding return on sales and return on equity is that the Chester group is significantly in the negative, almost 0.2 or above negative 0.10 for both their return on sales and return on equity. And so part of this that piques an analyst's mind is being able to compare it to the other groups that are all above zero in their return on equity and sales, that being the groups Baldwin, Digby, Erie, and Ferris. It is very clear within that a majority of the teams in the simulation did not have a problem maintaining their return on sales and return on equity, but for some reason the group Chester did. Would consider them a bit of an outlier in this scenario, would consider Andrew kind of within that median pack just because of how little negatively theirs was considered. Return on equity measures a business's net income or their profit in comparison or kind of in conjunction with shareholder equity or value. And so in this scenario, where a healthy ROE or ROS is considered between 15 and 20%, we see that Baldwin and the Erie group did a very good job of maintaining this, whereas Ferris also did a great job, but actually exceeded the limitations. Then we move on to the timeline view of our TC measure. And so our TC measure explains a few different statistical scenarios that we measured, including our return on investment and our asset turnover and cumulative profit. And so looking as a group, as again, to where in that bar chart, we saw that Chester was the lowest. Again, we see that Chester is our lowest here, with a gradual decline over time of their TC measure, whereas groups another one that's notable is Digby, seeing how they started at a TC measure of just shy of 1.2 and fell to a 0.75 by the end of the third round. But seeing a group as well, like someone like Erie and Green, starting from a 1.1 TC measure to long-term after the third round being at a 1.36 and almost competing with Ferris, which blew the crowd away in ROS and ROE. And so it just goes to show a little bit of the longevity and how the rounds impacted each of those groups. We then go over and look at our contribution margin scatter plot, in which we have all of our teams laid out in an open circle lens graph. Contribution margin measures the revenue after variable costs are considered from products and services for a business. And so especially in the sensor selling business, a couple examples of some of those variable costs would be hiring in terms of short-term, whether or not any groups chose to bring on short-term marketing or salespeople to help with growing their business, any sort of research and development costs that went into the sensor business, or general purchases of equipment and new parts to be able to better develop the sensor product for the future. And so looking across the board, per usual, we see that Chester is one of our lowest ranked at a 0.89 contribution margin for the year, which falls in line with their measures that we've seen before. However, again, seeing that Erie and Ferris continue to lead the way in contribution margin. Erie making somewhat of that late comeback, and Ferris being very consistent in their TC measure over time. It's no surprise that Erie and Ferris continue to lead in contribution margin as well. Moving on to our final regular slide, we'll talk a little bit about profits and earnings before interest and tax. Earnings before interest and tax is a very complex yet very commonly used term in the business world to describe a company's earnings before all of their interest and taxes, and eventually costs are considered on the front end or on the end of a fiscal year. And so looking at our companies across the board, again, no surprise that we see groups such as Erie and Ferris in the lead, both in profit and in EBIT. But one that stood out to me was seeing the group Andrew, which had been one of those middle ground groups considered in the last few slides, actually being much lower on the totem pole within profit, yet still holding their ground pretty well in earnings before interest and tax. And so again, always interesting to know that besides profit, pushing revenues and those kinds of things to the side, it always takes a little bit of a deeper analysis to be able to understand the operational efficiencies and choices that are made in a business scenario. And finally, we have an interactive dashboard to show a little bit about how each of the companies scaled throughout the 3 rounds, showing our contribution margin here, our TC measure, our bar chart from before with return on sales and equity, and then our profits and EBIT. But to make this interactive, I wanted to make sure to pull up our group Ferris first, showing there that we have change in return on sales and return on equity in the TC measure when we click on Ferris, and then also being able to pull up Chester as well and look at one of our non-group leaders to see their return on sales, equity, and EBIT over time. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day.